My boss fired me for refusing to hide faulty data in our AI project. She froze when I exposed her scheme. I'm a 52-year-old data engineer, 19 years at a Seattle tech firm until that Tuesday morning. I built their systems, fixed their mistakes, yet they tossed me aside. But I knew their secrets, and Wednesday would change everything. I was the backbone of their data team, training new hires, debugging code through midnight deadlines. Then my boss called me in, HR already there, and said my role was obsolete. No warning, no thanks, just pack your things. I walked out, calm, but I'd seen the signs. Whispers, closed meetings, altered data. What they didn't know was I'd kept records, and I wasn't alone. What time are you watching this? Have you ever been betrayed at work? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. I stood in the open plan office of Cascade Analytics, a Seattle tech firm, where I'd spent 19 years as a data engineer. The glass walls reflected the gray Puget Sound sky, and the hum of keyboards filled the air. My boss, Jennifer Coleman, had called me into her corner office that Tuesday morning, her voice flat as she said, "Michael, your position is being phased out. Clear your desk by end of day." Sarah Mitchell from HR sat across from her, a tablet in her lap, her face blank. I'd seen it coming. Whispers in meetings, projects reassigned, my access to key datasets quietly restricted over the past month. "I understand," I said, nodding once, and walked out without another word. No arguing, no questions, just a calm I didn't entirely feel. Back at my desk, I packed methodically. A photo of my wife Linda and son Ethan, a worn-out coffee mug from a team retreat, a small USB drive I always kept in my drawer. Younger analysts glanced my way, then quickly back to their monitors. I'd trained most of them. Kevin Lee, barely 25, still asked me how to optimize queries. Good kids, but they didn't know the AI systems I'd built, the custom algorithms that kept Cascade's flagship project running. They couldn't navigate the data pipelines I'd designed or the admin credentials I'd buried deep in the infrastructure. Kevin stopped by, his voice low. "Michael, this is nonsense. You're the guy who holds this place together." I shrugged, stacking my notebooks. Companies pivot. He frowned, leaning closer. No warning? After 19 years? That's not right. I gave a small smile. "It's fine, Kevin." It wasn't, but I wasn't going to vent. Not here, not now. Jennifer stepped out of her office, watching me from a distance, arms crossed. No goodbye, no thanks, just her eyes tracking me like I might take something that wasn't mine. She didn't know I already had everything I needed. In my car, I sat for a moment, staring at Cascade's sleek 10-story building. My badge, now in Sarah's hands, had been renewed 18 times. I started the engine and drove home, the Seattle drizzle blurring my windshield. They thought they'd erased me, but Wednesday would shift the ground under their feet. I'd joined Cascade when Ethan was in diapers, back when it was a startup in a cramped Belltown office. I'd coded through nights, fixed crashes during acquisitions, and built the AI framework that won them million-dollar contracts. Loyalty kept me there, even when competitors offered better pay. Linda used to tease that the servers were my other kids. She wasn't wrong. Jennifer became my boss 4 years ago, fresh from a Silicon Valley gig, all buzzwords and ambition. Data-driven innovation, she'd say, ignoring the systems I'd spent years refining. She pushed for speed over accuracy, rushing our AI project to impress investors. 6 months ago, she brought in Mark Thompson, a senior data scientist with a shiny resume and a knack for closed-door meetings. They'd huddle, voices low, whenever I passed by. Then I noticed my permissions changing. Subtle, like read-only access to certain datasets. I could have raised a flag, but I watched, documented, kept quiet. At home, Linda was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. "You're early," she said, glancing up, then pausing when she saw my face. "What happened?" I set my box of belongings on the counter. They let me go. Her knife stopped mid-cut. After 19 years? Why? I exhaled, leaning against the fridge. They said my role's obsolete. She set the knife down, her eyes narrowing. That's garbage, Michael. You built their systems. I nodded, not trusting my voice yet. You okay? She asked, softer. I will be, I said, and meant it. That night, I sat in my home office, a small room with a desk and a single lamp. No commute tomorrow, no emails, just silence. I pulled a flash drive from my safe, one I'd kept for years as a backup for audit protocols. Company policy frowned on off-site data, but I'd gotten approval during a security overhaul a decade ago, forgotten by everyone but me. I plugged it in, opened the files, system logs, data pipelines, access records. Then I saw it, buried in a routine audit I'd run last week. Anomalies in the AI training data for our flagship project, numbers skewed, error rates hidden, performance metrics inflated. Small tweaks, but enough to mislead investors about the AI's reliability. I dug deeper, cross-referencing logs. The changes traced back to Mark Thompson, approved by Jennifer. They'd been doctoring data for months, aligning with a pitch for a $10 million contract. I'd raised concerns 2 months ago, suggesting we rerun the models. Jennifer had brushed me off. It's under control, Michael. Focus on your tasks. Now I knew why. They needed the contract signed before anyone noticed the flaws. I copied the logs, the altered datasets, the email chains where Jennifer dismissed my warnings. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was focused. The next morning, Linda brought me coffee, setting it beside my laptop. You didn't sleep, she said, not a question. I shook my head. Found something? She raised an eyebrow. Something big? I nodded, sipping the coffee. Big enough. She didn't ask for details, just squeezed my shoulder and left me to it. I loved that about her. She knew when to give me space. By noon, I'd traced the data manipulations to specific commits in our repository. Mark's code, Jennifer's sign-off. They'd hidden errors that could crash the AI in real-world use, risking millions in liability. I drafted an email to Jennifer from a dummy account I'd set up years ago for testing. Untraceable, mimicking an internal domain. Subject, data integrity concerns. I outlined the faulty data, just enough to rattle her, no mention of my full findings. If she was guilty, she'd react. If not, she'd investigate. Either way, I'd know more. By 1 o'clock, my phone rang, Jennifer's number. I let it go to voicemail. Michael, we need to talk about your email. Call me immediately. Her voice was tight, not calm like usual. I didn't call back. At 2, an email from Sarah in HR landed. Mr. Hayes, your recent communication may violate your termination agreement. Cease contact with Cascade staff and adhere to confidentiality terms. I hadn't signed any agreement. They were bluffing, trying to scare me. I smiled to myself, leaned back, and kept digging. By evening, I found something bigger. The faulty data wasn't just a mistake. It tied to payments for a vendor, Pacific Data Solutions, a company with no real footprint, registered to a P.O. box. Payments started 6 months ago, totaling $1.2 million, approved by Jennifer. I searched public records. Pacific Data Solutions was linked to Mark's cousin, a name buried in a business filing. They were skimming funds through fake vendor contracts, using the AI project as cover. I saved everything: logs, emails, payment records. My phone buzzed again. A text from Kevin. They're freaking out. Jennifer's in Mark's office, yelling about some email. What's going on? I replied, stay out of it, Kevin. Just watch. I wasn't ready to move yet. Tomorrow was Thursday, the board's quarterly review. Perfect timing. I drove to a park near Lake Washington, my laptop on the passenger seat. The air was cool, the water gray and still. I thought about Ethan, finishing his junior year at college, and Linda, who'd stood by me through every late night. I'd built Cascade's systems to last, to protect, to deliver. They'd thrown that away, but I hadn't. I opened my laptop, connected to a secure VPN, and began organizing my findings. Spreadsheets of altered data, screenshots of Jennifer's approvals, records of Pacific Data Solutions payments. I wasn't just exposing a mistake, I was exposing a scheme. At home, Linda was waiting. "You look like you're planning something," she said, half smiling. I nodded, closing my laptop. "Tomorrow's a big day." She didn't push, just handed me a plate of dinner. I ate in silence, my mind on the board meeting. The moment Jennifer would realize she'd underestimated the wrong guy. They thought I'd walk away, tail between my legs. They didn't know I'd been watching, documenting, waiting. Wednesday would be their wake-up call, and I was just getting started. The Seattle drizzle had stopped by Wednesday morning, leaving a damp sheen on the streets outside my home. I sat in my office, the flash drive plugged into my laptop, its files open. Logs, emails, payment records to Pacific Data Solutions. The evidence was airtight, but I wasn't ready to send it yet. Timing mattered. Cascade's board meeting was tomorrow, where Jennifer Coleman would present the AI project's flawless results to secure a $10 million contract. I sipped my coffee, the mug warm against my palms, and thought about the 19 years I'd given them. Every late night, every system I'd saved, every rookie I'd trained, erased with a single meeting. But they'd miscalculated, thinking I'd stay quiet. My phone buzzed. Another voicemail from Jennifer, her voice sharper this time. "Michael, your email's causing problems. Call me now or we'll escalate this." I didn't respond. Instead, I sent another email from my untraceable account, this time to Mark Thompson, copying Jennifer. Subject: Data Discrepancies Update. I attached a single screenshot, altered error rates from the AI model, timestamped with Mark's code commits. No accusations, just facts. If they were smart, they'd panic. If they weren't, they'd dig themselves deeper. By 10, Sarah Mitchell from HR emailed again, her tone colder. "Mr. Hayes, your actions are in breach of company policy. Any further communication will result in legal consequences." I leaned back, almost smiling. They hadn't offered a severance package, hadn't even bothered with a formal termination letter, just threats. I ignored it and drove to my bank, where I kept a safe deposit box. Inside was another backup, older logs from when I'd set up the AI pipelines, including original datasets before Mark's tweaks. They showed the AI's real performance, good but not perfect. Jennifer had buried that truth to chase the contract. Back home, I cross-referenced the Pacific Data Solutions payments. The vendor had received $1.2 million over 6 months, approved by Jennifer, with Mark signing off on consulting services. I traced the company's registration to a P.O. box in Tacoma, linked to Mark's cousin, Daniel Evans. Social media confirmed it, a photo of Mark and Daniel at a family barbecue, posted last summer. The scheme was clear: inflate the AI's performance, secure the contract, and funnel money through a fake vendor. I saved the evidence, my hands steady, my mind sharp. At noon, my phone rang. Jennifer again. I let it go to voicemail. "Michael, this is getting out of hand. Meet me at the office, 3 o'clock. We can resolve this." Her voice cracked slightly, betraying her calm. I didn't call back. Instead, I texted Kevin Lee, the junior analyst I'd mentored. "What's the mood at the office?" His reply came fast. "Jennifer's losing it. She and Mark are in a closed meeting, shouting. Everyone's whispering about your email." I typed back, "Stay clear, Kevin. Let it play out. He didn't need to be caught in this." I drove to a coffee shop near Pike Place Market, the smell of roasted beans cutting through the damp air. My laptop sat open, connected to a secure VPN. I organized my findings into a report: spreadsheets of altered data, email chains where Jennifer dismissed my concerns, payment records to Pacific Data Solutions, and the link to Mark's cousin. I wasn't just exposing faulty data, I was exposing fraud. My phone buzzed again, a text from Linda. "Mark Thompson stopped by the house, looking for you." Seemed nervous. I said you were out. I replied, "Good call. Don't let him in." They were scrambling now, and I was just warming up. That afternoon, I contacted Rachel Nguyen, a board member I'd worked with years ago on a data security project. She was sharp, no nonsense, and one of the few who actually read reports. I called her personal number, one she'd given me during a late-night system crash. "Rachel, it's Michael Hayes," I said when she ticked up. "I need 10 minutes of your time." Silence for a beat. "Heard you left Cascade. This about that?" she asked. "Not by choice," I replied. "I have something the board needs to see before tomorrow's meeting." She paused. "Jennifer's been jumpy all week. Related?" I didn't answer directly. "Can we meet? Somewhere neutral." She agreed, naming a park near Lake Union, 5 o'clock. At the park, the water reflected the gray sky, and Rachel sat on a bench, her coat buttoned tight. I handed her a sealed envelope with a printed summary and a USB drive. "This is everything," I said. "Altered AI data, fake vendor payments, names, dates. I'm not asking for my job back, just for the truth to come out." She took the envelope, her eyes scanning me. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you ask questions," I said. "You don't just sign off." She nodded, tucking the envelope into her bag. "Tomorrow's board meeting is big. If this checks out, heads will roll." I nodded once. "That's the idea." As I walked back to my car, my phone buzzed with another voicemail from Jennifer. "Michael, stop this now. We can offer you severance, a good reference, whatever you want. Just call me." Too late. I didn't want their money or their apologies. I wanted accountability. Back home, Linda was in the living room, reading. "You look calm," she said, setting her book down. "Should I be worried?" I smiled faintly. "Not yet. Tomorrow's the day." She raised an eyebrow, but didn't press. I loved that about her. She trusted my process. That night, I accessed Cascade's email server one last time, using credentials they'd failed to revoke. Sloppy work, Mark. I scheduled a message to every board member, set to deliver at 8 tomorrow morning, right as their meeting started. Subject: urgent data integrity issue. The email attached my full report. Data logs, payment records, emails, the link to Daniel Evans. No accusations, just evidence, laid out like a map they couldn't ignore. I leaned back, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. They'd thought I was obsolete, a relic who'd fade quietly. They were wrong. Wednesday night passed slowly. I didn't sleep much, my mind replaying the years at Cascade. The all-nighters, the system saves, the times I'd trained Kevin and others to keep the company running. I thought about Ethan, studying computer science in college, proud of his dad's work. I wasn't doing this for revenge, not entirely. I was doing it because truth mattered, because 19 years deserved more than a cold dismissal. By dawn, I was ready. I sat on the porch with coffee, watching the Seattle sky lighten, waiting for the board meeting to begin. At 8 sharp, my scheduled email hit the board's inboxes. By 8:15, my phone started buzzing, numbers I didn't recognize, likely board assistants. I let them go to voicemail. At 9, Kevin texted, "Police are at the office. Jennifer and Mark are in a meeting with legal. Everyone's freaking out. What did you do?" I didn't reply, just sipped my coffee. The wheels were turning, exactly as I'd planned. At 10, Rachel called. "Michael, it's a mess," she said, her voice low. "Your report landed like a bomb. Jennifer's trying to blame Mark, Mark's blaming her. The board's calling in auditors." I nodded to myself. "Good," I said. "Let me know what happens." By noon, Sarah emailed again, this time softer. Mr. Hayes, the board requests your presence to discuss your submission. Can you come in tomorrow? I didn't respond. I wasn't going to make it easy for them. Instead, I drove to a diner near Capitol Hill, ordered a sandwich, and watched local news sites on my phone. A headline popped up. Cascade Analytics faces probe over data fraud allegations. No names yet, but they'd come. Jennifer and Mark were running out of time, and they knew it. The Seattle sky was clear Thursday morning, a rare break from the usual gray. I sat in my home office, the laptop closed, my coffee cooling on the desk. The board meeting at Cascade Analytics had started an hour ago, and my report, data logs, emails, payment records to Pacific Data Solutions, was now in the hands of every board member. Jennifer Coleman and Mark Thompson were likely scrambling, their polished facades cracking under the weight of the truth. I wasn't angry anymore, just focused. The kind of calm that comes when you know you've played your cards right. 19 years at Cascade, building their AI systems, fixing their messes, and they'd dismissed me for refusing to hide faulty data. Today, they'd learn what that cost them. My phone buzzed with another voicemail from Sarah Mitchell in HR, her tone softer now, almost pleading. "Michael, the board needs to speak with you urgently. Please come in today." I didn't reply. Let them sweat. I drove to a park overlooking Puget Sound, the water calm, reflecting the morning light. My laptop stayed in the car, but I kept my phone on, waiting for the fallout. At 10, a text from Kevin Lee. "Jennifer's on leave. Mark's office is empty. Auditors are everywhere." "What happened?" I typed back. "Just watch, Kevin. Stay out of it. He didn't need to be tangled in this." By 11, Rachel Nian called. "Michael, you weren't kidding," she said, her voice sharp with urgency. "Your reports turned the boardroom upside down. Jennifer tried to spin it, said it was a misunderstanding. Mark threw her under the bus, claimed he just followed orders. Auditors found over $1.5 million in questionable payments to Pacific Data Solutions. They're digging deeper now." I nodded, staring at the water. "What's next?" I asked. "Jennifer and Mark are suspended, effective immediately. The board wants you in tomorrow to discuss your role in this." I paused. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. Back home, Linda was in the kitchen, her eyes scanning me as I walked in. "You look like you won something," she said, setting down a glass of water. I smiled faintly. "Not yet, but it's close." She didn't push, just handed me a sandwich and sat across from me. "Ethan called," she said. "He's worried about you. Said to tell his dad not to do anything crazy." I chuckled. Too late for that. She raised an eyebrow but let it go. I loved her for that, knowing when to let me work through things. By noon, local tech blogs were buzzing. "Cascade Analytics under fire for alleged data fraud," one headline read. No names yet, but the details were close enough to my report. Manipulated AI data, suspicious vendor payments. I didn't post anything, didn't need to. The truth was doing its job. My phone buzzed again, an email from Cascade's General Counsel, Laura Bennett. "Mr. Hayes, the board requests your immediate cooperation to clarify your submission. We're prepared to discuss reinstatement and compensation." Reinstatement. The word felt hollow after 19 years of loyalty, discarded in a 10-minute meeting. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and checked my LinkedIn. Messages from former colleagues, competitors, even a recruiter from a rival firm offering a senior role with a signing bonus. Word was spreading. Michael Hayes, the quiet data engineer, had taken down Cascade's leadership. I ignored the offers for now. This wasn't about jumping ship. It was about finishing what they'd started. At 3, Sarah called again, her voice tight. "Michael, the board's offering a generous severance package if you'll sign a confidentiality agreement." I almost laughed. They still thought they could buy my silence. That evening, I drove to a diner near Fremont, ordered coffee, and sat in a corner booth. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. Jennifer confessed to approving the payments, but claims Mark set it up. He's denying everything. Auditors found $2 million diverted over 8 months. Board's livid. I sipped my coffee, the warmth grounding me. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd fade into obscurity. But I'd built their systems, knew their weaknesses, and had the evidence to prove it. I texted back, "Keep me posted." Friday morning, I woke to a flood of notifications. Tech news sites had named Jennifer and Mark, citing credible allegations of data manipulation and financial misconduct. Cascade's stock was down 5%, a rare hit for a company that prided itself on stability. My phone rang. Laura Bennett again. I answered this time. "Mr. Hayes, the board needs your input on the investigation," she said, her voice measured. "We're prepared to offer you a new role, Chief Data Officer, reporting directly to the board." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "I'll come in," I said, "but I have conditions." At Cascade's headquarters, the air felt different. The security guard, a guy I'd known for years, gave me a nod and a visitor badge. "Good to see you, Mr. Hayes," he said, his tone carrying respect. The elevator to the executive floor was quiet, the hum familiar but distant. I'd never been up here before, not in 19 years. The boardroom was sleek, glass walls framing a view of the Seattle skyline. Rachel Newes stood as I entered, her smile tight but genuine. The interim CEO, a woman I'd only met once, looked uneasy. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming," she began. "Your report exposed a serious breach of trust. The forensic team confirmed $2.2 million in fraudulent payments, and the AI data manipulation could have cost us millions more in liability." I stayed silent, letting her continue. "We're pursuing criminal charges against Jennifer Coleman and Mark Thompson. The board unanimously voted to create a Chief Data Officer role with full oversight of data integrity. We want you for it." Rachel slid a folder toward me. "Your terms," she said. "We reviewed them." I opened the folder. Full audit authority across all projects, independent budget control, direct reporting to the board. "This is what I asked for," I said, my voice steady. The CEO nodded. "It's unprecedented, but so was the fraud. We need someone we can trust." I leaned back, considering. 19 years, and they'd tossed me aside. Now they wanted me back, not out of loyalty, but necessity. "You have until noon," I said, standing. "I have other offers." Rachel's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. "We'll have an answer by then." As I left, Kevin caught me in the lobby. "Michael, you're a legend," he said, grinning. "They're calling you the guy who broke Cascade." I shook my head. "I just did my job." He laughed. "Sure, but you did it better than anyone." I smiled, clapping his shoulder. "Keep learning, Kevin. You'll get there." Back in my car, I felt the weight of the moment. Not victory, not yet, but something close. At 11:50, Rachel called. "The board accepted your conditions. When can you start?" I paused. "I'll let you know," I said, and hung up. 6 months later, I sat in a new office, not at Cascade, but at a rival firm that had offered me a senior role with better pay and no baggage. I'd turned down Cascade's offer, not out of spite, but because I didn't need their validation anymore. Jennifer had pleaded guilty to fraud charges, facing a reduced sentence for cooperating. Mark was still fighting, but the evidence was ironclad. Cascade recovered most of the $2.2 million, but their reputation took a hit. My former team, now led by Kevin, thrived under new leadership. I was at home one evening, reviewing a contract for my new role, when Linda walked in. "Ready for dinner?" she asked, her smile soft. I nodded, closing my laptop. As we sat at the table, my phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. "Board approved your consulting proposal. We'd value your expertise." I showed it to Linda. She raised an eyebrow. "You're not going back, are you?" I shook my head. "No, but I'll help them rebuild. On my terms." We ate in silence, the kind that felt earned. I thought about Ethan, graduating next year, and the systems I'd built at Cascade, now running smoothly again. I'd exposed the truth, not for revenge, but because it was right. My phone buzzed again, a LinkedIn post from Kevin. "Never underestimate the quiet ones, they see everything." I smiled, set the phone down, and took Linda's hand. The anger was gone, replaced by something stronger, clarity. I'd built my bridge, and it was solid.